Hi, Tanveer. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
How are
good
you?
afternoon. How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay,
How's
good.
everything here?
Everything is fine. So, how's Saturday morning treating you?
Oh, yeah, nothing special. My
Okay.
Saturdays are also
Okay.
as my other days. It's only Sunday that gives some solace.
Okay.
So this is your own platform or
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
okay. So you have some physical presence as well, or it's just
As of now, post-COVID, it all went online.
okay. So it's based normally it was based in Jaipur.
Sorry?
It was based in Jaipur
No,
pre-COVID.
no, no, not really.
Okay.
Okay. Tanveer, should we start the session?
Okay, we can start if everyone has joined.
Okay. Just a heads up, the session is being telecasted on YouTube. So it is also for the wider audience. And I will be taking questions from there and I would be directing those to you as well.
Sure.
Okay.
So I have prepared a PPT
Absolutely.
of some slides. So if I can share those.
Right. So we'll start with a short introduction about yourself and then we will go on to the presentation.
Sure. Please go
Hi,
ahead.
good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another session. Today's session is with IES Tanveer Khan. He is currently Assistant Director with the Ministry of Finance. He had joined the Indian Economic Service in 2021 and is currently posted as an Assistant Director at Ministry of Finance. He did his graduation in arts from Government Degree College. He then completed his master's in economics from Kashmir University and later went to Kolkata for MPhil in development studies along with his preparation for IES. We welcome Tanveer. We welcome you to today's show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your platform. Looking forward to it.
Okay. So, Tanveer, before we start the session, I would like to, do a very, one of our ritual that we have recently started, which is the light lamping ceremony. So, if you please allow me, I will go ahead and do that short video, and then we will start the session.
Yeah, please go ahead. Nice.
Okay.
त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
Okay. So, we officially welcome you, Tanveer. The stage is all yours. Please guide the students of your experience and your, journey that you have been through.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Uh, sh should I share my PPT right now?
Yes, I will just go ahead and make you one of the hosts so that you can share your presentation. You can share it now.
Mm, yes, code and PPT. Is it visible now?
It is, yes.
Okay. Hello. Good afternoon to all of you. I hope you are uh, all well, doing well in your personal lives as well as your academics, your studies. Today, I hope you already have a session on the mains part of this examination, and how to prepare. You might have gone through different processes that are required for that examination. And I have been given the task of now speaking with you about the interview stage of this examination. So, the Indian Economic Service is just, I mean, there are only two parts of this examination. One is the mains, and second is the interview. And since you already covered the mains part of it, I will be focusing on the interview part. So, if we firstly, I mean, these are some of my objectives of this session, and I hope I will do justice with all these objectives. Firstly, by the end of this presentation or by the end of this session, the participants should be able to understand what the UPSC interview demands from a candidate. And they should also be able to identify what are the key areas of focus that mostly the UPSC focuses on. So the focal areas that they need to focus on, they will be able to identify those areas. And it will also allow the participants basically to understand the interview process, the nuances of it from both interviews perspective and the candidate's perspective as well. So I have tried to bring the both in this presentation together. And then I will be sharing some tips with this candidates regarding how do you approach this interview preparation, the questioning and answering techniques, some which are very well recognized, I will be sharing. And I will also be sharing some of the mistakes which the candidates normally do at this stage. And then lastly, my own personal experience, and we will end with my own personal experience, and then I will take some questions. So it will be a short presentation. I will try to be as brief as possible, and then I will take questions from you because mostly it's an interpersonal interaction. Interview in itself is an interpersonal interaction, and I wish this session should also be no in that sort as well. So the first question is the serious question: why we need to take interview seriously in this examination? So firstly, the fact. So if we look at the total marks of this examination, it's around 1200, and 200 is interview. So if you look at the weightage that's been assigned to the interview, it's around 17%. So that's the one reason you need to take it seriously. And this percentage goes up when you look at, if you take interview marks as a percentage of the total marks obtained by the selected candidates. Normally, the selected candidates get a marks of around 500 to 550, or sometimes 600. But out of those 600 or 550, they had the interview marks comes to around 120, 130, 140. So it has its percentage in the marks obtained by the qualified students is a bit higher. So it's very significant. It can help you secure good rank. It can, if you are preparing for the other exam, civil services. So it makes a lot of difference regarding what kind of service you are getting into. Suppose if you are doing well in interview, you will land in IES, or if you have not performed very well in the interview stage, you may land up in an accounting service or some other service. So it's sometimes a very important determining factor of your life trajectory. So that's why you should take this part of this examination very seriously, whether you are preparing for the civil service or state service or any other examination or Indian economic service. So why then you need to prepare for this interview process seriously? Why should you know why and how this uh, preparation helps you to secure good marks? I mean, how it helps you? So there are many things it helps you, and preparation everywhere. Preparation is the king. So the first thing is that in order to make a very good impression, if you are very well prepared, it helps. I mean, it helps to present yourself in a very professional way, and that at the very beginning sends a very good signal to the to the one. It can be an employer, it can be a UPSC interview board. So if you are very well prepared for the interview stage, then it makes you, I mean, you make a very good first impression, and first impression always matters. Secondly, if you prepare well for this examination, there are some predictable questions which are asked almost in every interview. You can promptly answer those questions if you prepare very well. The third, you can answer those questions very effectively if you go well prepared. Your present yours, I mean, every individual is different. We have a different experience, we have different education backgrounds, we have different skills, experiences. Some are coming from the corporate sector, some are no from the academics. We have different backgrounds, we have different specialties. I mean, no, these special skills. Some are good singers, some are good dancers, some are good painters. And how do you present those skills effectively in an interview process? That can be done only if you prepare very well a priori before the interview. And also, there are some questions which are unpredictable. Since it's a subject to experience, you cannot predict what the other person will basically ask you. So there is no syllabus for no specified for the interview. So any question can be asked. So if you are well prepared, you will be able to cope with unpredictable questions that may come up in the interview process. And again, I mean, sometimes the interview board, especially the UPSC interview board, they will ask you a question and then they will try to dig deep in that question. And try to check your knowledge, the depth of your understanding of that particular topic. How to deal with those questions. Those things, you will get a hold of all these things if you prepare effectively for this. I mean, for this stage of the examination. Without preparation, you won't be able to make a good impression. You won't be able to deal with the questions effectively in a very concise and in a specific manner. So that's why you need to take this part of the examination very seriously, prepare well, and then you will score very good marks in the examination. These are some of the specific demands. Mostly, I have picked up these from the UPSC document itself. These are some of the things which they demand from the candidate: mental alertness, critical thinking. They will test your critical thinking through by asking questions. Why they will be no, why they will be asking you, tell us about the positive and negatives of it. I mean, you may be able to, I mean, say some three positive things about it, but if you are not able to say the three negatives of that particular question or that particular thing, then that shows that you are lacking somewhere in this critical thinking part. So that's why you need to be no, you need to look at situations, things, circumstances critically. Every question, probe, ask questions. Big, I mean, that curiosity is very important. And secondly, your answers should be clear and logical. It should not be in a haphazard without any organized pattern. Your answers should be rational and there should be a balance of judgment. You're sometimes what we cultivate in our no personal lives, we carry some biases and prejudices with us, and which is wrong. But sometimes, because we don't have that knowledge, we don't have that exposure, we carry those biases and prejudices, and then we try to hide those prejudices in an interview process. And they know how to get those things out of you. They will ask you the questions, and you may be forced to say, because in an interview you are already nervous, and you may these those things may slip out of your tongue, and then they will try to capture that moment, that weakness which you have just shown to them. So you have to maintain a very balanced view, which is not prejudicial to anyone, and that can be cultivated. It's a lengthy process, and that can be cultivated. I mean, that's why I'm telling you, people, those who are preparing on the interview, I'm not only addressing those, also addressing those who will be sitting in an interview in next 1, 2, or 3 years. It's also for those. You have to develop these things at the very beginning. I mean, develop it. If you're a college student, try to be unbiased as much as possible. Try to develop a very rationalistic perspective of looking at things, a very objective way of looking at things. That's very important. And the fifth thing is the variety and depth of your interest. I mean, if you are interested in a particular thing, how much you know about that particular thing. If you are interested in painting, how far you have gone into this painting field. Do you know some famous painters? They may ask you what was their contribution. Suppose if you are into the Indian painting, classical painting, then they may ask you about the Abhinandannath Tagore. They may ask you others who have done very good service who have done their service during the Indian national movement. Or so you should read about your hobby, about your interests. You should be interested. Suppose if you have mentioned in your hobby as cricket, then you should know about famous personalities in Indian cricket, in the world cricket, not only of your own era, but of the bygone era as well, of the past, the famous personalities in the cricket. So you should know about all those personalities. That's how they check your no depth of knowledge, of your interest, of your hobby. So that's very important. They will ask you a question about your hobby. So you have to read a lot about your hobby. I will come to that later, but that's why they will test your variety and depth of interest as well. Leadership quality, this is self-explanatory. And then intellectual and moral integrity. I don't know how they test it, but with experience, these things they just know, they get a hold of whether this person is. I mean, one example is that if you give a wrong answer with confidence, so they ask you a question, you don't know it, but you give a wrong answer with confidence, they know this is a very bad sign, because you are not being intellectually honest. You're saying a wrong answer, and that with some confidence, without accepting. I mean, you can say to a question which you don't know, that with humility, that I don't know it. So that's something which they will be looking after. I mean, if you say that I don't know it, maybe this is a positive sign. But this is mostly a subjective matter. How do they check it? It depends upon the board and whether they are in a position to capture this in a candidate or not. It's very difficult to do it 25 minutes, but they have a lot of experience. They are retired bureaucrats. They know a lot of things which we don't know. There are now firstly some reasons to be very cheerful. That's why I don't want to scare you. So some reasons. Firstly, when you submit your DAF, you know your DAF. So DAF is 3-4 page summary of your entire life, your achievements, your education, your place of birth, your parentage, everything is almost in the DAF. It's very comprehensive document which you are submitting before sitting in the interview. And they know it. But more than you know it because you have filled the DAF. So you have to be, this is one thing to be very cheerful, because you know much more than they know about yourself. Also, you are over the biggest hurdle. The mains examination is the biggest part of it. And you have done that. You are in the interview stage. And this is another reason to be very cheerful. Already one process, one stage of the examination is done, and the toughest part is done. This is an easy part now. And thirdly, you have prepared and you know your subject. If you reach to the interview stage, you have a very good knowledge of the subject. In economics, you will be, I mean, you have to be very good in economics in order to pass the four Indian these economics papers. You have to be good in Indian economy. You have to be good in other economic subjects in order to pass the examination in this competitive setup. So that's another reason to be very cheerful, because you know the subject. Maybe the interview board may not be as qualified in economics as you are, and you are in touch. They are not in touch with the subject. So you know what are the contemporary inventions or innovations or something that's happening in your subject. Also, you have prepared answers to predictable questions, because from your DAF, there are some predictable questions they may ask me. If you have written something peculiar, then they will ask about all those things. You have written an interest which is very unique, then they will ask about these questions. So you can prepare beforehand about those questions. So you know all those things. You have prepared very well about the predictable questions. Unpredictable, nobody can predict those things. And those questions, how to deal with those questions, then I will come to the later to that, but to predictable questions, at least you know the answers. You have prepared the answers. And importantly, I mean, from my own personal experience, that you can dictate the direction of interview to a very large extent. You can tell the interviewer, and you can take all the interview, no, you can take the entire board to a particular direction, which is your comfort zone. Or if you don't do this, they will take you into a different direction, which is not your no comfort zone. They can take you to the uncomfortable zone, and you have that key. You can take them to the comfortable zone. I will also suppose. I mean, if you're a very good hold of macroeconomics or monetary economics, so then they may ask you the question, suppose, of what is monetary policy. You can answer. I mean, you know it, so you can say first question is there. I mean, they will ask the first question. If they ask you, suppose, what is monetary policy, so you will answer it, and then they will ask you about inflation. Because in your answer you will basically say that RBI has a mandate to control inflation, and monetary policy is a tool used to ensure price stability in the Indian economy. So if you use the word price stability, then inflation comes in. So they will ask the second question about inflation. Then they will ask the question about maybe liquidity trap. If you give an answer to the liquidity trap, they will ask a counter question about whether there are any examples, real world examples of liquidity trap. You can say maybe Japan, and then they will ask why is monetary policy not effective in that case. So this has happened with me. So I have taken them to this route because I was comfortable answering these questions. You can also be in your comfort zone. So if you're not comfortable in a particular field, don't say some words which they can pick and they can ask you the counter questions. Don't go into that area. So that's why, I mean, you can take them to a particular direction in which you are comfortable, and then the interviewer, I mean, you will interviews of 20-25 minutes, and you can finish around 15 to 16 minutes with this process. And then other person may ask some questions, but the time is precious. You have already exhausted a lot of their time, and with productively, not something you have left a very negative impression, but a very positive impression, because you know a particular topic in great depth. They have tested your depth of knowledge. So this is important. This is another reason to be very cheerful, because you can control to a large extent how your interview process should go. Now, first things first, you know yourself. Most of the questions, when you give them the DAF, they will ask you questions about yourself, and your interaction. And then they will ask you maybe questions about different aspects of your personality. So you should know almost every aspect of your personality. If you have written that you are a painter, or you are a dancer, you do exercise or jogging, then you also write maybe many things. I have seen DAFs, people write many things. Sometimes, I mean, they're not doing those things, but they write those things, which is not a very right way to approach this interview process. But they write. And if you have written anything special in your DAF, then you should prepare almost every aspect of it. You should be very careful about writing things in the DAF. And once you have written, then you should prepare, and you should know yourself, your different aspects of your personality. Those should be prepared a priori. Sometimes we do have, I mean, nobody is perfect. We may have some negative traits. Those should be avoided. We should not mention those traits unless they ask you about weaknesses. Never mention your weaknesses until they ask you. That's the golden rule. Another thing that's important in the DAF is that where you come from. That needs to be prepared well. Your place of birth, residence, where do you live, that's very important. You may also have, suppose you were born in Jaipur, but you have studied in Mumbai, and then you did your graduation in Delhi. So it's a long list. I mean, it's 3-4 states. Then you have to prepare almost for every state. What's important? I mean, how do you prepare about every state? That I will come to that later. But almost every the place where you were born, the place where you studied, and I mean your middle education or your higher education, those states or states, you need to be well read about those, because if you are not curious enough, they will know it. I mean, if you don't If you're not able to answer the questions, maybe if you're studied in Delhi and you're not able to answer questions, basic questions about Delhi, they will know that he is not a curious person, and they don't want in government the people who are not perceptive in a way. And they will also try to establish your interest, and you have already shown in your hobby or interests, your motivations, your interests, and these things, these things you need to prepare very well. Now, how do you prepare a DEF? That's very important. Firstly, you need to read every word. I have already said it. You need to read every word of your DAF because you have written it. You have to prepare it very well. You make notes for every word you have written. Suppose you have written about your name, they may ask you what is the meaning of your name, and then they can take the entire 10 minutes or 15 minutes of your interview to that, in that direction. So be prepared about your name, what kind of counter questions they can ask if I say that the meaning of my name is this, and if sometimes in mostly the Hindu names they have spiritual and a kind of a mythological no meanings, then they can take you in that direction. So that's, you should read, you should be able to answer those questions, because if you have not probed this basic thing about yourself and what's the meaning of my name, then how can you probe the things which maybe, I mean, which are important to your job or to you, which are important to your country. I mean, this is a basic thing because you have been living with your name from the last 20, 23 years, 28 years, and you are not able to know the meaning of your name, the genealogy of your name. So they may ask any question about it. So that's why I told you, prepare notes for almost every question. That's every word you have written in your and the things that can help in preparing notes for your DAP is that you read the interview transcripts of toppers. I've done it, and then I've made notes. So normally in the civil service interviews, the toppers or those everyone who know who reach to the interview stage, they basically publish the interview transcripts of their interviews. What kind of questions were asked to them from, and what was their answer, whether it was satisfactory or not. I mean, you can, they also mention all those things, whether they were satisfied with it or not. So you can read all those transcripts. They're easily available online. You can search them, and then that will help you. And especially, you need not to read the DAF of every person. No. Suppose if you're coming from, I'm from Jammu and Kashmir, and I have to prepare for the interview. I will read DAF of a person or the interview transcript of a person who is from Jammu and Kashmir in order to prepare for the JNK questions, JNK specific questions, because they may be asking me the questions which I'm asked to him because he's also from the Jammu and Kashmir. Suppose the questions like insurgency, emotional integration, economic integration, these questions were asked to me, but I was very well prepared because I had read the interview transcripts and the questions were asked to other candidates as well, and I know my answers were readily available sometimes. So that helped to secure good in this interview. And third thing is never be casual about your DAP. You can't be casual. You have to be very serious about this part of the interview preparation, and be precise and don't show off. That's why, I mean, sometimes we write a lot of things in DAP that I do charismatics, and I have read a person's DAP and I don't know what he was. And then when I asked him what is it, I mean, he was not able to explain. So don't show off, don't use the words. Sometimes they can ask you. I mean, I have seen it because I am now dealing with the bureaucrats here. I mean, those bureaucrats who can be tomorrow in the UPSC. So use simple language. Language should be very simple, but it should be understandable. It's not necessarily that you use a very sophisticated language and then you got caught up in the words which you use. Don't do that. And thirdly, write only those things. Write everything. I mean, your DAP should be an honest assessment of yourself, honest summary of yourself, not something which you are not, but you are mentioning in order to impress them. They will never get impressed. They are not there to know to get impressed. They will try to do their job. They have a job to do to select the best candidates, and they will do that. And honesty is something they truly aspire, because a civil servant, one of the things for a civil servant is to be very honest. And if you are not honest, they will capture it, and it may send a very negative signal. Again, last one, choose your hobbies as hobbies. Sometimes when I decided to write, no, what should it was a question, what should I write in the hobbies? So then I used to write letters a lot of. My way of writing, even if I write at my own leisure time, then I used to write everything in a letter format. I used to address it to someone, and I was very scared whether I should write it or not in my hobbies. But then someone advised me that you should go ahead, and I wrote it, and it went well. But again, I even after doing it in my leisure time, being it or no, it was my hobby. I was loving to write letters. I even right now I love to write letters. But sometimes when you write it in the depth, then you have to prepare as well. I mean, I dug it. No, I came to know about a lot of things about letter writing after that, because I researched a lot, I read a lot about letters, how they came into being, who was the first person who wrote the letters, and different styles of writing. So those questions, then you have to broaden your horizon when you write your hobbies in the depth. So you read about all your hobbies, research, and also you can go through the interview transcripts and see the transcripts of those candidates who have mentioned the similar hobby. Suppose if your hobby is jogging, then go to the interview transcript of a candidate whose hobby is also jogging. And then you will see the kind of questions they may be asking, and you can prepare accordingly. Now, coming to the economics part, I mean, how do you prepare for the economics questions they may be asking you? I think firstly, personally, what has helped me is that I began to read the economics newspapers, the financial, suppose Financial Express, Business Standard, or Live Mint. These are some three best papers in India. So you start reading all those things. You will develop the vocabulary. You will develop the understanding of Indian economy and the day-to-day happenings in the Indian and world economy. So you have to pick one newspaper among these, and then start reading it judiciously, carefully, almost every day. And then that will help you in your interview preparation. Secondly, EPW article. EPW, Economic and Political Weekly articles, it will give you an academic, because Indian economic service is mostly a research oriented, organized service. So they may ask you questions from on Indian economy, and they will not be accepting answers, generalist answers from you, because it's a specialized service. You should know the data, you should know the evidence, the facts, the different aspects and the perspective on a particular economic issue. So that you will get from EPW articles. So you should read EPW articles. No, monthly. It comes monthly. So every issue comes monthly. So read these no, in a very judicious manner, in a very no, carefully. You should read almost every aspect of Indian economy. If you come to know about a particular issue, then from newspapers, then you should go to the EPW and see whether any academic article is available or not. So that's how you can actually prepare for it. And thirdly, you memorize the definition of basic economic terms. Suppose what is fiscal deficit, what is revenue deficit, what is public debt, what is inflation. These are some of the questions they may be asking, because sometimes they are not no in they are bureaucrats, and they get these terms from maybe newspapers, and they may be asking these terms. What is the meaning of this public debt? Okay, so I was asked no, they asked me what is the difference between growth and development. So it was an easy question. The first question they asked me was, what is the difference between growth and development? So I had prepared earlier on, no, what is the difference? I knew it, and I my definition was also ready made. I had prepared for this question, and it was the first question they asked me. So prepare definitions for basic economic terms and memorize them. An important thing is you have to read the budget and economic survey very carefully. Economic survey is very important from the Indian economic service point of view, and budget is very important for both Indian economic service as well as civil service, because they will ask you the question. Budget gives you normally an idea about the policies of the government for the uh, previous and the current year that's going to come. But economic survey is an economic analysis of the government of India's performance in the previous year, and it's a pure economic exercise. That's why they will expect you to have read this economic survey carefully. There will be questions from it, and even if there are no questions from it, you should use data and concepts from economic survey in your answers. That will help in fetching good marks. It's very important. And also Yojana magazine, it's a monthly magazine. You should read the economic edition of it. It comes around maybe quarterly after 3 4 months, 2 3 in a year. In 2 3 months, this Yojana covers the economic Indian economy. So you should read those editions of Yojana, which will give you an idea about the different schemes, programs of the government of India targeting different sectors. And this will also give you an idea what are the priority sectors before the nation right now. Suppose when I was preparing, at that point of time, the government came up with the PLI scheme and for different sectors. Then they asked me questions about the problems with those sectors, whether the government scheme, PLI, will it deliver, or it's just like any other scheme? What are the features of this scheme? So it's very important. And these things you get only from the budget, from newspapers, and from Yojana magazine. It's very important to read all those things, especially when you should start to read these, carefully before 2 3 months before the interview, because it's very important. They will ask mostly questions from these, because they read the news and then they ask you the questions from it. On the world economy, you should check IMF and World Bank papers, but mostly they will not ask much questions unless it's a very no, it's a major global event. Suppose the disruptions in the Red Sea, that has no that has caused panic in the world markets, and it has also led to increased inflation, increase in the cost of insurance, and many other things throughout the world, because around a lot of 80 say 70 80% of the trade from Middle East to Asia comes through the Red Sea. So what kind of economic implications this kind of an event has? They may ask the questions about this. They may ask a question about the war in Ukraine, what kind of impact it has on Indian economy. So these questions and many other things which are happening in the U.S. economy, because the U.S. economy, suppose the increase in the Fed rate, what kind of impact it has on the emerging economies, on India. So those things you should read, and you will get those things from IMF and World Bank papers, and you should give a read before going into a process. Read about new technologies that are coming up, how basically they are going to disrupt the economics or economies of the world, how they are going to disrupt the job market. So you should read all those things. These are favorite topics of interviewers, and you should prepare very well on these topics before going into the interview. Now, some of the things I won't go into detail. I don't. I have taken a lot of time, so I will be just skipping a lot of it. But while giving answers, you should listen carefully and answer the question. Listening is very important skill. You should not jump no to answer before listening it. You should take 10 seconds after they finish the question and then answer your questions. You seek clarification. If I mean, one person, one no board member asked me a question and I was not sure what he was saying, so I asked, sorry, please, if you can repeat it. So you can say to the interview board member that if you have not understood the question well, you can seek clarification. Is this what you want me to answer, or can you repeat the question in a very courteous and humble manner? So you need to be very courteous when you ask or when you seek clarification. Have evidence to support your claims. If you are claiming something, then you should have an evidence or a fact to know back that. Your answer should be very balanced. You should be honest, constructive. You should not be pro-government. You should not be anti-government. You should maintain a fine balance. That can be only maintained by having evidence-backed no answers, the fact-based answers. Because the fact-based answers, these are facts with no, ideological lineage. Uh, we can talk about your personal contributions if you have any, but if they ask, only if they ask, otherwise you can leave it. And they may ask sometimes, you tell me about three positive or negative things about yourself. You should no, you should be ready about all those things, about your positive, negatives of yourself, of any other situation, of a particular no fiscal, of a particular policy of the government. Tell me about positive three things of the PLI, or positive or negative three things of PLI. You should read, no, you should prepare accordingly. I mean, you should, for every topic, look at the negatives, look at the negative implications of it, look at the positives of it. They can ask you both. You should be ready. And you should be specific in your answer unless they ask you to elaborate. Uh, you should have a very good command on some of the burning issues of the day. Your answer should be, I have already dealt it, impartial, unbiased. Your political views should not, no, clock your judgment. For example, if they ask you about Israel, Hamas war, your ideological lineage should not affect your objective assessment. That's very important. So that should be, carefully taken into account before before preparing an answer, before making notes. Your notes should be objective, then you can replicate it in the interview process. This is a long-term process. Suppose your body language, you should work on your posture when you go into the interview, into the room. Your personal appearance, body language, that you need to work on it. I mean, it cannot be done in 2 or 3 months, but a lot can be done in 2 or 3 months. It's a long-term process. So that's why those who are listening and they have a lot of time to, suppose if someone is from college, they have a lot of time to go, no, prepare for this examination. They have 2 3 years. You should try to, develop all these personality traits which will help you in your life. Use in the interview process, you should maintain calm. That's very important, and proper contact. Your body and your thoughts, what you speak and what your body says, they should be in sync. There should not be a discomfort when you are giving an answer. So that's very important. Also, your confidence should be very high. Unexpected questions may come up. I mean, I had a very, terrible experience. Um, so I will come to that, but it was a very terrible experience. Sometimes unexpected questions come up. What you need to do, you need to maintain calm and composure. That's very important. And sometimes they may ask you about your contributions, about your strengths, weaknesses. You should prepare. These are some of the basic things you should prepare for the interview. These are some do's and do nots for the body language. You should maintain very good eye contact. You should smile. You should not laugh, but you should smile. Open posture, relaxed but alert. You should be, well dressed. You should listen actively. Very important. That's very important. You should listen, process it, then answer it. This is the process. Listen, process, and answer. And do nots are, you need not to wave arms. You cannot stare out of the window. You have to look and maintain a proper eye contact with the person who's asking you the questions. Uh, just a minute. My personal experience was that uh, they asked me about questions. Since a lot of time has passed, I will be taking some of your questions as well. They asked me about myself, my state, economics, monetary policy. So I spent a good deal of time on monetary policy because I wanted them to be there. And I had MPhil as well. So they asked me a question on my MPhil as well, my area of research. And that person who asked me about my research, I asked him to, I was not able to understand his question. So I asked him, please, if you can repeat it again. So he repeated the question and then I answered the question. Then was this lady member who told me to give a speech. Yeah, she told me that you have 30 seconds, you think, and you are representing India in the World Economic Forum, and you have to give a speech to represent India at that stage. So take 30 seconds and give us a speech of 2 minutes. That was something I had not prepared for this, but I did well because my marks were very good, and maybe they were okay with my answer. But I should have, no, if I someone had said me that this kind of question may come up earlier, I would have prepared better for it. Mentally, I would have prepared mentally myself that this kind of question may come up, and I should have been a bit more ready. This was a mistake which I did, and I don't want you to do the same mistake. So there will be situational questions. They may ask you, like another, no, a colleague of mine, he was asked that uh, he has a project and she has a project and she needs funding for it, and we are the no donors. You present your project before us, why we should invest in your project. And she was also given 2 minutes. So these kind of questions may come up. You should be ready for it, but you can't do anything about these questions because these are subjective. And if you have read, I mean, if you are well read, if you uh, have read not only about your own subject, you have read about other areas, and you have watched, suppose sometimes watching good speech, good debates can help. So it's a multi-dimensional process, because we are also very multi-dimensional, and we need support from multi-dimensional. We need to read in a multidisciplinary point of view, and then we will be able to deal with questions in a very, no, in a multi-dimensional point of view. Otherwise, I think I should stop here and take your questions. Then maybe something else can come out of me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanveer. I think, most of it was already covered out of the questions that I had. I have some questions that popped out of the students, before the session and today. So the first question that we have is, how much economics versus non-economics? What's the ratio of economics versus non-economics in a typical interview?
I think at the end of the day, it's your DAF. Suppose if you prepare your DAF, there will be an economics portion of it. Sometimes it is 50-50, and sometimes it is 75-25. So this is the normal ratio in Indian economic service ratio, in Indian economic service interview.
Okay.
But I mean, they can ask you anything under the sun. But the good thing is that when you are indulging yourself in a conversation with your professor, with other people who are good in economics, suppose with economics lecturer or some governor of RBI, suppose you have read a conversation or an interview of governor, RBI, or finance minister, you will see that the kind of questions that come up in those conversations are different from the kind of questions that are asked in the question paper. So it's a kind of a conversation. When you go into the interview process, it's a conversation. You have something to say. You will have something to say, but sometimes you should know be careful of saying things if you don't know it. You should be honest in saying that I don't know it. And on the economics part, it's mostly because in economics you can't, even if you have a majors in economics, you will not be able to know. You can't know everything. Sometimes the questions may come, you don't know the answer even to the they may ask you the basic definition of something, you may not know it. So you can know very calmly and very humbly say that, sir, I can't remember or recall the definition of this part right now, but I will go and look back into it. This is how you deal with the question. But this is the ratio. But at the end of the day, it depends. And the interview, I mean, in which direction it goes, whether it goes into economics direction or into generic direction, it depends upon you. That's
Got it. So the next question that we have is, what happens if you are in a situation where you're not able to go ahead and answer the question, how negative impact would that create in an interview?
I don't think that's why. I mean, you should prepare beforehand of how should I say no to a question which I don't know. They may ask me a question and I don't know. There is a way. Suppose I say, sir, I don't know. That's one thing. Second approach is that, sir, sorry, I don't know. Right, no, the answer to this question right now doesn't come to my mind, but I will go back and read about it a lot. So this is another way. The way you say no also matters.
Got
So
it.
this is very important. You can say no, and it can send a negative signal. You can say no, it can send a very positive signal. So
Right.
that's very important. How you say no.
Right. As you already emphasized that, we need to make sure that we take it positively till the person.
Yes.
Okay. So another thing, which has been asked is, so for example, someone thinks very differently about the policies that are currently running. Say, for example, someone might think that the current interest rate or the current monetary policy of RBI is not fair, and say a similar question is asked to him or her in the interview. So how to put forward the fact that they do not agree with the current Indian policy? Is that a good thing to do in the interview?
I have mentioned that your answers should be evidence based, especially in economics. You cannot say, based on your ideology, that I do not agree with this government's policy, this policy is wrong. You can say, suppose, Make in India project. So if you have if you have to counter the Make in India project, then how do you counter it? There's a way. Suppose when it was launched, there were some targets fixed for it for 5 years. By 2019, this will be achieved, this will be achieved, this will be achieved. And it wasn't achieved. So you can say, you can criticize it. So it has a good intention when it was launched. The targets were good, and it would have been very nice if those targets were achieved. But due to some reasons, what reasons we are pushing? I mean, they will ask you questions about the reasons why it has not done. It was not able to achieve the targets. They can ask you, or you can say, but it would have been. Then in the reasons, suppose the targets were not, you can answer them with the fact the targets were not achieved. Suppose one of the targets was that the contribution of manufacturing sector will increase from 16 to 25%, but it has not happened in the last 7 8 years. So one of the reasons is that maybe the way the policy was framed, it would have been better if it would have been done in this way, which is your way. Then they can ask you the questions, and you need to be very well prepared about your own point of view. You can Similarly, you can question the way RBI has handled the suppose your the current policy of can question or criticize the current policy of monetary policy of the RBI, but you need to have a better alternative. I mean, you cannot criticize a governor who has maintained an inflation in 6% range in the world when the entire world is grappling with inflation. You can't. Sometimes it sends a negative signal that the person, the student, is ideologically biased. He doesn't see the things objectively. So you have to be very objective. If you have a better example of a central bank who has done a job, no, in a way, if more effectively and efficiently than RBI, you can cite an example. But if you don't have an example, then what's the point of criticizing?
Right. I get it. Sure. Okay. So, while you were mentioning about, somewhere in between, you mentioned that you can go through interview transcripts. So, where these interview transcripts are available in? like for example, you said if you have to prepare, then you may want to go through the transcript of a student who is from Jammu. How does that happen? How do we get those transcripts?
So what I did, since before me, there was this. Firstly, I mean, there are two, three sources. The other source I have not mentioned is the mock interviews, the
Okay.
interviews which are available on YouTube,
Hmm.
by done by various uh, platforms in Delhi. So they put up the interviews of those candidates who are successful in the examination. If you know someone, you can just search his name on YouTube and you will get the interview.
Okay.
And also in the transcript stage, you can type in the Google the name of that person and with interview transcript. That's how I did it.
Hmm.
And also there are various Telegram channels right now, which are currently, I mean, since the interview process is going on right now, every candidate who comes out of the interview publishes his interview transcript right now. And though even those who are appearing for this year's interview, they're also going through those transcripts because they come to know about the board members, what kind of questions they are asking, what is their forte. So you will know about this. You should go prepared like that. So on multiple Telegram channels, I can share with you the name of the Telegram channel. The student can, no, they can join and they will read about those interview transcripts. And you can search the name of the person which, I mean, in which you are interested, or the people who are from your state or who have a particular hobby. You can search in that Telegram channel your hobby directly, and it will take you back to that hobby if it is written somewhere, and then you can read it. But
Read
that's
the
the
book.
ways. To do it. It's easily available. It's not a patented work. It's available online.
Got it. Okay, sure. Then one of the student asks, how many members are there in the board, and in general, how much time does one individual should complete their interview in?
Normally, there are 4 to 5 members.
Okay.
It depends, 4 to 5 members. And uh, when in my board, there were 4 members because we have the interview weightage and the marks is only 400. And I think everyone has a 50-50 marks. So they give you out of 50-50-50, and then they collate it,
Okay.
how many, that becomes your aggregate marks. In the civil service, it's 250. That's why there may be around 5 members, 5 board members. But normally it takes 20 to 30 minutes, not more than that. Normally, on an average, 20 to 30, and they are done with you. They don't want to, neither they want to grill you more than enough. They know how, they come to know about your tolerance limit, whether you are, and they also come to know about your depth of understanding.
Hmm.
They get a grasp of that within first 10 to 15 minutes. So they don't need to grill you for a lot. I mean, also there's the pressure of other students, and it's just half an hour for allotted to every student.
Right. I'll take last two questions. One of them is the student is asking that you mentioned about budget and survey, and we need to kind of go through that. But somehow I find remembering each and every number very difficult, or the data very difficult. So, how important is remembering data for the interview?
I think some data points are very important, not all data points. Suppose your fiscal deficit, it's a very important number. You should know it. Your percentage of public debt for an economic student, it's very important. Uh, your primary deficit, your interest payments, these are some of the figures. Your GST collection uh, for that month, because it comes month on month basis. There are around 10 data points which are very important. The size of your economy. Uh, so only 10 data points. You need not remember all the data points, but it will be good if you know at least the trend of those data points, whether it has been increasing or decreasing. And again, the share of different sectors to the GDP. You should know numbers. You should remember the numbers. What's the contribution of manufacturing sector? What's the contribution of industrial sector as a whole, agriculture sector, employment scenario. These are some of the stats which you should remember. I mean, you should know it. It's a common, even the common man also know that unemployment is 6%. So you should not say 6%. You should give as per PLFS, the unemployment is 6.7% in urban areas or in rural areas. So your answers should not be generic, especially in the Indian economic service. Because it's a specialized service, you should be more good with numbers, at least some basic numbers, not all numbers. And if you don't remember the numbers, at least remember the trend.
Got it. So Atif is asking, sir, do they also ask about our technical skills, especially if I have mentioned it in DAF? Would it give me some kind of advantage if I'm proficient in Stata R and have worked on data sets like NFHS, PLFS, etc.?
I think it can give you an edge. I mean, at the end of the day, they can ask you the questions if you know, and they can help. But if you don't know, then they can't help. At the end, if I have written something in the DAP that I know this data, they will not ask the question. They will ask, what is data? What is big data? They ask you the question, what is big data? So it's not only about data, they will ask the question. They can ask you the question about big data, how to handle big data, what are the problems with the big data. So those kind of questions, if you are then good, if you know the answers, then it may be a positive thing for you. But sometimes they may ask you a question which you may not know. That can be a negative as well. So at the end of the day, it depends upon how well you have prepared for that, whether you have worked, for that part of DAF or not, because you have to read about all those things.
Absolutely, it can backfire.
Can backfire.
Okay. Yes. Okay. One last question, Tanvir, I'll take for today. So, Siddharth is saying that usually, although I'm very comfortable, I mean, I know all the topics well, but how do I make sure that I'm not nervous? Because this is such an important thing, and towards the end, nervousness can go ahead and spoil everything, even if I know things well.
I think there are two, three things. Firstly, is that they will make you feel comfortable. I mean, it's their job. But sometimes they may try to grill you. I mean, and try to disrupt your that comfort zone or balance which you have maintained. But that doesn't happen at the very beginning. That happens in the middle of the interview, not at the very beginning. At the very beginning, they try to make you feel comfortable. That's that's what was done with me. Secondly, you, I mean, you get some time before entering into the room, you are made to wait outside the room for around 5 minutes. Take those 5 minutes. Suppose think in a different way that this is the thing, this is my thing. There are two ways to look at it. First is that this is just like any other conversation, and I should take it like that. And there's nothing, you should talk to yourself that there's nothing special in it, and I should take it like any other conversation that can somehow help and relieve the pressure. And second thing is that this is an opportunity which I don't want to miss, and you should tell your nervousness to go away at least. I mean, that's how I cope with my own nervousness. You have your own coping mechanism. You know yourself. So how this is an opportunity. I don't want to ruin it. So nervousness go away. That's how I deal with it. So you have your own coping mechanism. You can take breaths and then start outside the no when you're outside the room. Inside the room, you can take some time before introducing yourself. Or even if they ask you the questions directly without asking for your introduction, that can also happen because they have already your introduction. They may not ask you to present your introduction. So take around 30 seconds, take a deep breath, and then start your answers. Normally, it goes away. At the very beginning, almost everyone is nervous, but after 30, 40 seconds, it goes away. So you need not to worry that I may be I may get nervous inside the room because they are also humans. They are m- at most of the time they are the age of our parents, and you don't feel nervous in front of your parents. They make you feel that way. So that's not an issue, but at the very beginning you may be, but they will ask you a question in a very uh, polite and in a way. Sometimes they may ask you a very funny question in order to relieve your nervousness if they feel that you're nervous. It's not a big deal. It will go away if you think if you make your mind think that way.
Got it. Sure, Tanveer. Okay, so with this, Tanveer, we'll go ahead and wrap the session for today. I really want to thank you for being here today with the students and guiding them for interview preparation session. And I really hope that all the future aspirants would would get benefit out of this session and would be taking your insights and will be using them during their interview preparation session. Thank you so much, Tanveer, once again for taking out time on Saturday afternoon and giving our students this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on your platform. I hope it will be helpful to the aspirants, and if at least one aspirant uh, gets the benefit and gets through the interview process, that would be an honor for me. Thank you for
Definitely.
having me.
Thank you so much, then. Have a great day. Thank you. So with this, we'll go ahead and